You're in the field house with the Coach Clack Academy.
All about the ball. Yeah. Tonight, we find a way.
And they knock
A-plus content.
County
Authentic stories.
to be the 7A champions.
Actionable takeaways.
We're going to attack them like they've never been attacked.
This is the Field House Podcast.
What's up, coaches? Welcome to another episode of the Field House Podcast. Today we are joined. Hey, Mash, look who we found and pulled in here.
Imagine that. Rolled up to Parkview High School, and who do we see?
It's great to have you back, Clack.
I live here now.
I know you do. I know you've done a lot of things, and it's always fun coming back here because I feel like this is kind of like a construction project. Every single time I come in here, it might be a couple of weeks, but it looks totally different, right? And there's so many more things that are being built, and so right now today we're going to dive in to kind of talk about what's going on here at Parkview, how that translates to you outline the blueprint for the success. We're now kind of seeing you live that out. So let's just and of course we've got Mash here who's been close to the project and can kind of give us his insights from what he's dealing with. He's actually dressed today in his orange and white as opposed to his typical navy blue.
Looks awesome.
It does look good. I like
awesome.
it. I like
Yeah.
it. By the way,
Orange is your color.
That's what I've been told.
So let's just dive in. So Clack, tell us, talk to us about, here we are. We're about 90 to 100 days in here in this transition. Tell me about some of the successes, the challenges, maybe some of the differences than what you thought you were going to see when you came in here.
Well, let's just kind of go from the top there. Yeah, it's 100 days in, roughly. By whether you're in administration, presidential administration, or you're taking over a company. I mean, it's the same thing, right? You kind of have these benchmarks. You're definitely in it enough to you don't know everything, but you figured out a lot, and you had your big boulders, whatever you outlined as your critical objectives to cover. And I hope Coach Mashburn could tell you what they are, because I've been very intentional about keeping them front of brain. With that said, the three objectives is we're going to win this locker room. I mean, that's it. All starts here, and it all feeds to here. Everything is about this locker room. You're coming to a new program, whether they're coming off the highs of highs and you're replacing a legendary coach, or they're coming off of a tough patch. There's always going to be something that you got to assess. What is the key to getting in there and getting those young men to buy into my vision, right? And the vision that we're going. And as you've heard me talk before, other than getting them safely equipped and keeping the lights on, the number one asset for that is the assistant coaches. So obviously that was a major piece of the bandwidth, of the energy, of meeting the coaches who are on staff. I mean, again, pleasant surprise. Knew no one on staff. Knew no one in the locker room. Probably the biggest pleasant, and surprise is probably the wrong word, is just the unknown. I mean, I was able to retain a lot of the guys on staff, a lot of great men who are ingrained in this community, ingrained in this program, have familiarity with the kids. So that was a huge plus.
And you're very fortunate because you've got some really good guys that are here.
No, very good. And again, you want to be careful with guys. I don't know everything that's went on before. I don't try to. There's a lot of good things that were going on before I got here, and one of those things was the men that had already been put into these rooms. And so the other piece, not knowing these guys real well, the other big benefit, I just talked about it the other day. I don't know how good we're going to be. I don't know what the wins and losses are going to be, but I can tell you right now, the collective character of the group that I inherited, nothing that I've done, right? I came in. I'm just super fortunate. Yeah. Talked about it the other day. They are a group of guys, kids, who today, when you give kids free time and you give young men free time, it's like they go into their own little worlds. They're in their phones, they're in their headphones. Man, we give these guys free time, and they're out there organizing pickup wiffle ball games. That's awesome. And they're out. I saw them running hills together the other day. No coach is directing them to do that. Everything that we've put before them, all the more granular objectives, whether it be working with urgency, being intense about what we do, but also positive, having enthusiasm about the things that we're doing, because collectively those things to me equal fun. They've been all over. So huge wins there.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the staff, and that's that we go back to some of the conversations we had late last fall into the winter about priorities, those top priorities, building leadership teams, and obviously it starts with the staff. I'll tell you what I noticed stepping in here, like you said, was a very, very solid core staff that was here. Most importantly, they really, really care. Like, care about these kids, care about the community as a whole, and it comes through every time we're in meetings, every time we're on the football field, every time we're talking to kids. You can just see that, and so that's a big head start because now you don't have to build that care. That care is already built in, so now we can start going.
And then then leadership team within that. Now we just got to connect. So we haven't had a chance to do as many off-campus things, but we had a night where we went up to a local restaurant and had tacos together and was able to chop it up, and you could just see, like the other day when we were chopping it up in the group text, and you were like, if the season's, I think you said verbatim, if the season is half as entertaining as this group thread, we're gonna. So, but that's like the kids out there playing pickup football. Like that's when you see that genuine kind of collective energy, that individuals becoming the we. So again, tons of work to continue to do, but I feel like we're getting the seeds planted there.
Well, what do they always say? They say, people are less likely to remember what you tell them, but they're definitely likely to remember how you make them feel. And what I see when I come over here every day and we break from our meeting and we get ready for practice, everybody, staff, players, everybody around is ready, and they have that good feeling, right? So it's kind of like that. We're here. I feel good about the direction we're going, so now I want to go 100 miles an hour. Well,
just to piggyback on that, that's the thermostat or thermometer piece, right? You can have a lot of really good coaches who show up and you can tell it's like they drug themselves here. They end up going out on the grass and they do a great job because they're professionals. But there's just something about, and you feel it with your team too. That's when that conversation we had about the Energizer bunnies, and those 5 to 6 kids that you can count on. Hey, they're excited to be here every day. If you start to see them drag, I'll be honest, we got 10 to 15 of them on this team. And that doesn't mean
10 or 15 energy bunnies.
Yeah. I mean, you could just tell, like you're coming in after a hard day of practice and maybe 3 days in a row, or you've been really grinding it in the weight room, and you're just expecting them to show up with that. That dog days of August feel. Obviously, we've seen a little bit here and there. It's long we don't have a game for a long time. Yeah. Again, I've been through this process, not just talking about taking over a program, but 20 years of coaching. So I've seen a lot of teams. That's unique.
Yep.
That's unique, and it's something to build. It's a great thing to build from.
So, talked a little bit about the transition, but tell us what have been some of the challenges that you've kind of gone through in your first 100 days?
Yeah. So I mean, as you assess the job and you outline those objectives, right? Winning the locker room is going to be one at any job you go to. It doesn't matter. Then you got to look at what's next. Okay, so what are the next most important things now? So for us, it was repairing and building the support around the locker room. Secure the locker room, support the locker room. So hours have been in from the first moment I got to step in front of the parents to last night on my drive home on a Booster Club meeting. It has been as front of brain, as top of priority, probably where the majority of my time has been spent, is building that board in a way that it's in the same vision, right? So there was a whole interview process. I had 15 applicants, which was awesome after that parent meeting, and I was set out to get 5. I got 9. So I got 9, a full board, lots of eager parents just wanting to help, understanding the vision, on the same page, but we're all learning. That's new for me. I've been blessed to inherit booster clubs that were rocking and rolling, and I just step in and don't mess it up, and make sure, making sure that we're on the same page.
But guiding the vision also. Step one is
delegate, don't separate.
Delegate,
don't separate. So it was never removed, but I didn't have to build. We would evolve. So we're building this one from the ground up, and that takes a lot of really dedicated people, but we're teaching each other. I haven't never really led a booster club in that way. It was kind of co-leading, if you will. But with that being said, tons of success in the fact that we've got a lot of our policies and our plan in place, but that's the qualitative phase that we're in. We've been planting, and so when does that harvest come in? And obviously we know that harvest is with dollar signs. But there's also another harvest there. A big piece of that is not just building money for the program, which is absolutely essential, but building support. So creating events, getting the community more involved so that they can put a personal relationship with each other, parent to parent. So it's a little easier to go work that concession stand if I know Matt and I know Chad. But also, just to want to come to Friday nights and it's the only place to be. So again, tons of work there. Already got some events outlined, already working on our sponsorship program, and obviously registration. I mean, that in and of itself is a big deal. So a ton of work there.
And when we had Coach Devon from the 8th grade team come in, I mean, I remember the quote he said was, man, he goes, Clack's been so hands-on in the community. I was wondering where to focus on the varsity team.
Right.
Well, I was like, that sounds like Clack.
So that brings us to the third piece, right? Secure the locker room, support the locker room, supply the locker room, or replenish it. So that's the pipeline. And I knew that was going to be a challenge coming to Gwinnett County. Great park system. Every kind of cluster has its own park. But unlike other feeder systems that were directly under the football program, at Milton we had, that 6th, 7th, and 8th feeder went through our booster club. You had to be in district. You knew those kids were already living there. Kids could play wherever in Gwinnett County. In 6th and 7th grade, they're trying to put a stop to that in 8th grade where you have to live where you play, which will be great. So my goal, 100 touch points.
Yep.
100 touch points. Basically 10xing my involvement of going to the youth and creating opportunities for them. And we started that, was it?
March.
Mid-March. Early.
Mid-March.
Yeah, mid-March. We had our first Friday Night Lights where we invited any middle schooler up here to campus, and we got a ton of coaches, had a good 2.5-hour deal just to build some excitement. We rolled that right into a performance training little program that we put on where we could go straight to Trickle Middle School, which, by the way, one of the biggest advantages, one of the biggest pros and cons, put it in the pro column. We have one middle school of 2,200 students that feeds us 100%, and it's the only one.
With a weight room, 2 gyms, and a huge outdoor field.
So think about that, right? So I've been to Trickle Middle School 12, 13 times now. That's more than I had been to probably any middle school in the 5 years that was any other program, because there were multiple middle schools.
And that was in month 1 or month 1.5 before we even got on the field here. And just, I'm telling you, Tad, I mean, when you just kind of you see faces light up when the head football coach of the high school program is there pouring into you.
100%.
I mean, you see the effort, the enthusiasm, the want to be there. It was great, and you didn't have to do that.
Right.
I mean, we had plenty of time. There was no driving reason to get them out there. They weren't getting prepared for something, a tournament in a couple weeks or whatever. It was, we just need to get out there, get in front of them, and get them moving.
And again, you look at time as the most valuable resource. So if I can go to one middle school and see all my guys who are, again, they're preaching Parkview over there because they don't have to worry about, are some of these guys going to another school, and some of these, they are aligned with us. So you're seeing that. So what an advantage. So you got to make sure you secure that. You got to make sure you go in there and show them that they're important, and because they are. Nobody would say that they aren't. But again, we get out of school at 2:10. They get out of school at 4:05. I could pack them on a bus, get them over here. That's another hour. That's more friction for them. But because it's just one, we go straight to them. So we were able to get over there for 8 workouts, and then 4 days of kind of a spring training little deal that we did with them. And then, and that's just building into all the things that we're going to have for them in June and July and moving forward. I've got a whole buffet of things, and all the way into our mentorship program. I mean, 100 touch points was the goal. We were already a quarter of the way there, and we're not even through spring ball yet. So I would say that is a challenge because you've got to put more effort there. But it's been a huge success. So if that's our 3 core objectives, right? Opportunity cost. Time spent somewhere else means time can't be spent somewhere else, right? So when you have those other things outside of just the locker room, it's going to pull you. So again, a benefit that we have here is we've got 40 of our players in first period.
Yeah.
So I see them every day, and I've been on campus since late June or early February. Advantage. Well, there is a disadvantage, or there is a challenge and opportunity cost of everything else. 3,200 kids in the school, 40 kids in first period, awesome. 30 kids who aren't.
Right.
So the touch point with them, unfortunately, has not been to where I wanted it. And if there was 25 hours in a day and 8 hours in a week, I'm not making excuses. I'm just being practical. Maybe I could have gotten to that, but I did. I spent some days walking those halls, and Parkview is an older school that's had add-ons and things like that. It's not that with a spine, you go down that spine and you basically, And you got to search. And so I could spend a whole day and maybe get 5 to 6 bad interactions where I'm pulling the kid out of class real quick. That has probably been the biggest thing, and I've talked about it. It's like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't been able, and we've seen some impact of that in the spring as some of the, especially the freshmen coming to sophomore, kind of lost up there a little bit. They're late to get registered. They don't have all their paperwork done. They haven't been getting the install meetings. But as you look at, hey, you got to give and get. Let's get them to spring.
Right.
Let's get our arms around them. Because if we can just get them to June 2nd when the summer program starts,
They're there.
and the benefit is they have plenty of runway left. You know, if it was a rising senior who I wasn't seeing, then that's a little different. That guy's running out of time. So yeah, I mean, that's, you know, a quick synopsis of all the kind of successes, the priorities, and the challenges. But I think it's an appropriate time to look at it as we reflect back on the first 100 days, and then a nice little transition as we're getting into this next phase, which is spring ball. What's up, guys? It's Adam Clack with the Adam Clack Football Academy. One of the biggest goals of our academy is to help young athletes develop the essential skills to properly play this game both safe and at a high level. I can't think of 2 more essential skills to our game than blocking and tackling. So we've created the Contact Academy. In this academy, there'll be 3 days of fundamental training taking you from the ground up to be able to block and tackle both from a vertical space and on a perimeter space. We're gonna add tons of competition, tons of drills, tons of skills. So come join us at Parkview High School on June 5th. Doesn't matter if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, this camp will have something for you to help you take your game to the next level. To register, go to adamclackfootball.com. See you there.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about your philosophy on spring ball, and I'll have to say, you know, just for if you have to put a grade on the first 100 days, I'd put you guys at about an A+ right now. Just the amount of time that you've been putting into it. Again, hitting the marks. You see the energy. You feel it with the coaching staff here. So now we got to transition to the next phase. Let's talk about spring ball, right? So what's your goal? How are you defining success right now as spring ball is coming around?
First off, I'd like to say, it's nice to actually be doing some football.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I still have barely popped on the huddle and watched the guys play last year. But again, part of that is other things to do and knowing that our spring philosophy, our process will be our process. Obviously, as I've been with the program and I know the kids coming up and I have a good understanding of where they've been, my preparation and involvement with how we structure spring and some of those things will obviously increase.
Because you can start to predict.
Sure,
right?
sure,
You can kind of start to see ahead. You know, on day one, year one, it's harder to predict how things are going to go in this particular environment, this particular community.
Right. Right now, they're just names on paper to me for a lot. I mean, I get to see them work out, but again, I couldn't tell you 2 weeks ago, like what position, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't go down the list and be like, he's this position and that position. I'm still figuring that out. But just the greater kind of general philosophy on spring, and it's a good question because I think from coach to coach, you're going to get different answers. And even for me, there's been almost 3 evolutions of how I approach spring. Early on, it was as if we were about to play the state championship on May 17th. And I mean, it was intense and we were more of a strict 2 platoon. So you had all your guys coming back. And back when I was an offensive coordinator, I mean, I remember beating my chest coming out of, it was going into the 2012 season. And I'm like, dude, we could score 40 right now. And we could have. And I had a lot of returners. And we went from, we were already mid-season because it was, they knew everything.
Yeah.
So we could just go. And yeah, that's fun and cool, and obviously spring's important, but like really, you're not playing a game for a long time. So again, it's back to that art of peaking. And then as we got into that next evolution where we started doing our 2 position system, where it was like, okay, so that's going to slow us down. We're not going to be able to score 40 coming out. Okay, I learned that wasn't that important. But then it was like, okay, I still want to leave this feeling like we're at like this elevated level of preparation. And so that meant long practices because we have 2 positions now. And so we would have 2.5-hour days, very physical. And it wasn't a bad spring. But again, as I started looking and, that 2016 year when I felt like we were really good and we had worked so hard from January, and week 6 we're kicking butt, and week 7, and all of a sudden, boom. So again, I started thinking, okay, so not only do we not have to score 40, but also what is the real priority of this? So that's where I am now. And I look at spring as we've broken down the 9-part season. Part 1 is the winter. And the word I use for that is build. Right? We're building our roster. We're building our bodies. You know, we're
Staff, leadership.
We're building
teams.
our staff. We're building all those things. Everything's about build. As we get into phase 2, which spring practice is 10 days, 10 practices over 15 days. Spring practice to me now starts when we come back from spring break and it stops at dead week. So I look at this whole phase as one. And the word I like to use is learn. Learn. I want to learn. I mean, especially this year, this team. What do we have?
Yeah.
And again, like in the NFL, every team is different, sure. Right? You're gonna get free agents, you're gonna get guys get traded, guys retired. College, especially now, every team is different, right? But even like take the transfer portal out of it, yeah, every team's different. You're gonna have some, but the guys on your team are kind of the same. High school is the most different from year to year because those aren't even the same kids if they're the same person. Because a kid from a freshman to a sophomore, who knows? A kid from a sophomore to a junior, who knows? Kid from a junior to a senior, a lot of times, who knows? So again, learn. I want to learn as much about them so we can then, and it takes time. From spring break, we start with some install meetings, and then we get to put it together. But then we're going to come back in June after 2 weeks off, and we're going to have to go back over and start to continue to build that foundation. And we're trying to get them to learn. So I want to build versatility and flexibility through that, and that's what the 2 positions is all about. And we'll give them 2 in the spring, and we may drop one of those or move one of those when we get to June after we've learned a little bit. But I still want everybody working 2 things. Because it's not until dead week that we start going primary, secondary, and now you're really, getting your O-line together, you're getting your secondary together, you're getting the chemistry of hey, this is going to be the slot receiver, this is going to be the X, this is going to be the Z. So it's all about learn right now. And so what success means to me is that we're taking the cultural aspects, the way we want to practice, the way we operate, and what we started with them was in the weight room, right? We're going to work with urgency. We're going to transition that over to the field. Do you think that they've noticed the type of urgency that we're going to play
100%. 100%.
And I want to keep it in proper perspective. Yes, spring is important, but it's still just a step. Right? So if we can have energy and urgency, it's going to be messy. It's going to be sloppy. Hey, let's coach on the fly. Let's get them moving.
Well, you said learn. And that's a great way, I think, to define the phase of the season is learn. And the more you've hammered that home, the more I've seen people being open to learning in so to speak, a risk-free way.
Yes.
We don't have a game next week. So we have the mental space to sit and learn.
Yes.
And to take it as slow as we need to take it. Obviously, we want to go fast, but the learning phase is we have to make sure we learn. And so if we had to slow it down, we had to slow it down. Again, we don't have a game next week.
The urgency piece of it is more about how we really learn best. And again, I use the analogy. Hey guys, how do you learn how to play a video game? Do you sit there and read the instructions until you're confident, or do you pick up the freaking sticks and go?
Make a bunch of mistakes.
They say, oh, coach, I pick up that. I said, exactly, that's what we're doing here. So, permission to fail.
Yes.
I expect you to
Yep.
fail. Remember, if you don't fail today, you didn't get something out of it.
It's a risk-free fail, and if you're going to be wrong fast. We can fix it.
Permission to fail, that's huge. That gives kids the allowance to go out there and one, play hard, but try new things in a risk-free environment.
And you, at 14 years old, you got guys who will tell you what they can and can't do. I'm like, how do you know? Well, now we get into competitive toughness, right? And the first piece of competitive toughness, really kind of the most important, is courage. What I mean by that is the courage to compete, even when you don't know the result is like the positive result is going to be likely. You can get guys who will never get outside of their comfort zone. If they're scared, they're going to, come down. You made a mistake, and now coach is on my butt. We got to be careful of that as coaches, and we've talked a lot about that. Again, intense is different than negative. And I talk to the guys all the time. I say, it was intense out there today, right? I said, did one coach come out and really cuss you? Did they really get on you? No, not really. I said, yeah, but we're urgent. Our emotions are going to be up. So understand, intensity doesn't mean negative. So again, what is success to me? And it's as much about coaching coaches or us learning each other. Say, guys, look, relax. I understand. I'm not evaluating our defensive and offensive schemes right now. I'm not evaluating my cornerback coach on how well our corners can cover, our receivers on how well we run routes. What I want to be able to do on June 2nd is have 80% of our guys be out there when we come back after 2 weeks and be able to line up and run base plays cleanly. Line up and get your assignment and alignment and understanding of what you're supposed to do on defense correctly, because it's kind of a big picture first, and then we will come back and get to the granular levels. Let me let you know where to go first, and then we'll really help you understand what to do
it well.
when you get there.
Yeah, and that, you mentioned something on the learning, and you mentioned the staff too, right? Learning is not just, with the players. It's programmatic. We're all learning as a program, our ways of working. When we come in every day, who's doing what? How are we handling our film tagging, stuff like that. And so we're all learning that together. And you mentioned the other day, this is the first time that this collective staff has been on the football field together. And so you had to understand we're learning that as well, right? Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget our first walkthrough, and I said, reload, meaning like I wanted, somebody wanted to see something, offense coach wanted to see let me run through that, or defense coach, whatever. And one of the coaches was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I said, hey man, we've been coaching together for all of 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. I was like, we're learning each other too. So trying to get that, hey, we're going to be intentional, we're going to have urgency, we're going to have intensity about everything we do, but let's keep it in proper perspective.
Yeah.
This is still just one step.
So I want to talk a little about the practices, kind of what you're going through, practice plan. I want to first talk about the two position system. And you and I were talking beforehand where you said, it's been really interesting to kind of see it take shape, because it isn't something that you just snap your finger and, wow, this works really, really well, right? You're saying that you can see some of the faces on the players, that there's a little work that has to be done on it, right? So,
yeah, and I'll tell you, and I'll just contrast this. So, when I worked for you at Milton, when I stepped in, the two position system was sort of in place and kind of running. So I got to see the benefit of it.
And if I remember, you came after spring.
Yes, that's right.
So you kind of missed that whole...
But it was kind of there, right? I kind of showed up, we got a two position system. Coming over here, I got the chance to see it for the first time from day one on the two position system, which is a different view because it can get kind of messy early on. So I thought that's a really good contrast. But, everything that we've talked about, the benefits of it, I started seeing early, right? Because now you're starting to think about players in a different way, thinking about why we put players where we put them and how we can maybe future-proof ourselves down the road.
It truly is as wide of a lens as you can get. I'm constantly pulling coaches back a little bit as they're projecting a very focused lens on, I can see this player playing this specific role, doing these things. I want to start working that now. I'm like, you're going to make your life a living hell in spring, because we've got to stay too general. We've got a lot of guys. It's day one. It's day one for everybody. Honestly, when I think about spring, if you took the top 10 players off our roster and said they can't participate in spring, I'd probably tell you it might make it for a better spring, because it's really more about learning the other guy. I already know what those dudes can do. We're going to get them caught up. So to your point, there's pulling these things back, and it's a challenge this year because I didn't know the roster real well. So I had to lean on my assistant coaches to build the position organization charts that we do. And again, we break them down into we have an orange day and a white day. That means you have an orange position and a white position. But I want full offenses and defenses to keep that two platoon mentality of practice, and then a full white offense and defense. So naturally, especially when you haven't seen this, you start organizing by, okay, I see him as being the best guys on offense here. I see them as being the best on defense here, and whatever color we started with orange. So we saw that orange group, it seemed like, okay, that's an A, just relative term. That was an A offense versus an A defense, and it was real good and competitive. Well, then when we get to white day, it truly turned more into that true kind of full secondary position a little bit. And that's not what I want. I don't want it to feel that way. So we had a lot more learning with that white group, so they didn't go at the same pace. It was a lot messier. And maybe it was something that we could control, again, because we've got guys playing other sports, we got guys injured. So there's all those things that go in the spring. The personnel organization is so important. So I think that was maybe the biggest learning curve that we'll take going into next year is, guys, I don't want an A versus an A and then a C versus. I want them to look like a bunch of Bs, not individually but collectively, so that they are evenly matched, so that we can get our teamwork. But I don't want the guy trying to play running back for the first time. Now he's on the white offense, running behind nothing but backup linemen. you don't get a true
That
evaluation.
doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, and he's not really getting that fair shot there. So again, those are just some learning curve things.
And also thinking about what the purpose of it is. The purpose of it is to get the best players in the best spot, right? And to future-proof for potential problems down the road.
Your contingencies.
Right, and so you're building that in early. So it's not saying, okay, we want to build a B team offense and a B defense and put them together. What's the best way we can do that? It's truly starting with the players first. Then you're looking at the orange and white and saying, okay, does this work? Can these work together?
Yeah. Do we need to make that? Shift this one over there? And again, future proofing, building those contingencies. Okay, if I take from spring break to June to dead week, and I'm learning the base fundamentals of the offense and the defense or the position that I'm in. And then we come out of dead week and we go, now your primary position is here, another position, let's say D-line, and your secondary position is going to be right tackle. Well, it starts to really separate real fast where the 80 to 90% of your time is going to be on defense and 10% on offense just to keep that fresh. Well, naturally, you're going to get rusty. Naturally, you're going to forget some things. But I felt like if week 3 turns around and now we have an injury and, hey, buddy, we got to flip you to a primary right tackle this week, I can still get him ready because he's already internalized the base of the offense. I'm not teaching him from scratch what, inside zone is to us, even from the vernacular piece that takes brain space. And that's just talking about Friday night. We got a whole program. So now we're talking JV guy. We're talking 10th graders. Coach, he can't play for me on Friday. Well, he's in 10th grade. Who knows? In 2 years, let's figure it out. And maybe it's even a part of deductive reasoning. Well, okay, we figured out this really isn't fit for his skill set. So next year, we can try him in some different spots, and who knows? So that to me is the biggest piece. And, talking about what success is, I want to learn as much as I can. I learn as much as they can so that we have versatility going forward, and we're putting our best 22 that we can and moving them around and figuring out what fits for this season. What's up, guys? This is Adam Clack with the Adam Clack Football Academy, and I'm excited to introduce the Air Academy on June 12th, 13th, and 14th, right up here at Parkview High School. This is for any quarterback, receiver, or DB really looking to take their game to the next level. We're going to be teaching universal truths of football as it relates to what's open, how to recognize coverage and the strengths and weaknesses of coverage, as well as applying situational thinking so that we can get to the best answers faster and more consistent. Building anticipation, that is the key to being a great football player. This camp will be a blend of the classroom and the field work. Over 12 hours of online and field session work at this camp. You're going to leave here in 3 days being a much better football player that will apply to any playbook, any offense you play against, any defense you're trying to attack. For those looking to register for the camp, go to adamclackfootball.com. Can't wait to see you there.
So I want to drill down and get a little more granular now. So let's talk, you've had about 10 practices here. So let's talk about your practice plan. What does that practice plan look like right now this time of year?
Yeah, so again, there's 10 practices, including your scrimmage. But to me, it starts even a little bit before that because you're going to do some form of install, Are you bringing them in before school, keeping them after, meeting with them online, doing some walkthroughs without a ball that doesn't count as a practice? And again, even now, and maybe it's part of just the situation we're in with, coaches off campus, players in different places, not quite knowing what what that they're kind of used to. I really wanted to err on the side of doing one less rep than one too many reps. And so we even did a little less there, but we still did, we did like our orange position Friday morning. We're going to get a 30-minute install, and then we're going to come back on Saturday, and you're going to get an hour walkthrough. So we did that for each position. And it was just enough, I think, that helped us go fast into spring. So then I start thinking about spring. Since we slowed down there, I really slowed down, in a sense, even the way I went about those 10 practices. Not from a tempo standpoint, but we started the first 2 days in just helmets. I just want to see you get out there, get lined up. We're going to run as many plays as we can. Now that we're going against each other, naturally we're in helmets. So
find out what our practice is all about.
Feel the practice. It was a shock to the system. They're on the clock now, and they're seeing what we mean by, hey, the clock is not a suggestion. When that thing moves, you move.
Well, that clock, by the way, I don't see how you can coach a practice without it. I mean, that thing is slick.
You'll never want to go back. So there's a ramp to that. So the first 2 days, and again, practice 1 and 2 will be the same. They're kind of mirror images. So we move up. And again, just because it wasn't in pads doesn't mean it couldn't be intense and fun. And we had some one-on-one competitions, day in practice. The guys are hooting and hollering, having a good time. So then practice 3 and 4, we go to shells. So now we're introducing some inside run. We're introducing our board drills, to build some physicality. We're getting a little more physical. We're seeing the pass rush. We're doing all those things. Today, so we've had 1 and 2, which was Thursday and Friday. Have the weekend to break. Then Monday, Tuesday, we went shells and bang for the first time. And you saw their legs starting to go. And, got to be careful not to, don't want to get anybody injured.
But also the excitement.
But the
I mean, on Monday they were ready to go. I think they wanted to show Coach, here's what I'm about.
Yeah. A long time to go pop somebody. So, but today, yesterday was our 4th practice, so we're coming back and doing a full film session, big overview of everything, and prepping us for the next 2 practices, which we've kind of ramped to, which we're going to go full, we're going to go live, and it's going to be a lot of situation. I want the coaches on the sideline. I want to try to let's see where they're at. We'll give them situations where, say, it's 2nd and 10 at midfield. You got 3 to get the first down. If you get it on the first play, boom, that group's off, right? That was your drive, right? So defense, you lost that rep.
Yep.
You lost it. You had the opportunity for 3 plays, but you're gone. Offense, you turn it over, you're gone. All right? And so we'll rotate guys through, new groups through fast that way. So doing a lot of situational stuff, trying to make it feel as real as it can. And again, live. I don't go live very often in practice because there's that fine line, but at a certain point, I don't want somebody going live and somebody going half speed.
Yeah.
That also gets you hurt. So I want everybody to know, hey, guys, look, prepare yourself. Let's go. Like, this is how the game is played. We're still going to be smart. We're going to protect the team. We're still going to go live. Both sides understanding. I don't want one guy going in a thud speed and one guy, going live, and that's how people get hurt.
So I thought you did a really good job over the past week. Every time we've met, Coach has gone through and talked about what does thud mean? What's tag off mean? And been very prescriptive about it. Because a lot of times we just kind of assume that, they know what a tag off means and what it doesn't mean. And you were very prescriptive about that. And, I don't think we really had any issues.
Well, there's 4 tempos. There's true walkthrough, which I want you going slow. I want, step to your fits. Defense, give up. If you have a stunt call, I want to see you get and show us that you know what you're doing. But if the offensive lineman takes an extra step and closes that gap off, give yourself up. Like, let the play go. Let the running back jog through his path so everybody can see. The next phase of that is tag off, run through. That's very similar to what you would see teams doing before a game.
Yeah.
You're not going to impede the ball. Well, you're not going to purposely restrict the ball carrier from moving. But now, like D lineman, if you win your gap, own your gap. Linebackers fit. But let the ball carrier, I call it waterfall, like if it's a vertical run and it's closed and he's going to find open space. But I want that ball to finish down so that the backside corner and linebackers see their pursuit and all that stuff.
And on defense, you're not trying to stop the play. You're trying to see it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The goal is to see what's happening.
Exactly. But if, offensive line I don't want them going full speed. So I don't want the ball carrier just to run into his back. So don't stop it. Let it keep going. And then you got thud, right? And thud is just really full speed and a quick whistle. I always say it's thud. If you run through the ball carrier and y'all end up on the ground, then that's still thud speed. What I don't want to see is the diving. I don't want to see the slinging. I don't want to see any of that stuff. And then a quick whistle. And when that whistle, everybody needs to stop, And then you got life. So that's your 4 deals. And then even within life, sometimes we'll tag off on the quarterback or we'll make him live potentially at times. But everybody else is live, but just always remember protect the team. You got a shot to take a guy out, don't take it.
Yeah, why?
We're not, diving at legs, but if you got to tackle low.
Yeah, I just like that. Just very prescriptive about it. So there was, there's no question. Any coach out there listening to that, that's what I would suggest is don't assume that those players know what tag off is, know what thud is. Like, be prescriptive about what you want.
To me, there's two big reasons other than just bad luck. There's 2 big culprits to injury in practice. One is guys not being able to to play properly. So I'm not in the right space. Now I'm diving, I'm falling, the legs are, I'm diving for loose balls. I don't want to see that. Those type of things can lead to injury. So when you get the guys to understand and they play on their feet, they play with their hands and they play fast, you normally can cut down a lot of injuries there. The other reason that I see injuries or a culprit of it is when tempos aren't matching. Either somebody's going full speed and isn't supposed to, or somebody should be going full speed and is being a spectator. And that one's probably the bigger one. So again, just making sure I don't want you going thud speed and you live speed. I don't want you, going tag speed and you going thud. So, and this has nothing to do with speed. You're between the lines. Your rear end better be engaged and head on a swivel and active the whole time, because the moment you let your guard down, you relax your body and somebody rolls into your leg, that's it.
And all this, in order for it to work correctly, it all takes alignment. Alignment with coaches bought into the two-position system, alignment with the definitions of what the different tempos are on the speed, alignment on what the goals of spring practice is, alignment on your tempo for how you're doing. I'm curious to, again, you've been coaching now for 20 years. I'm curious to how much evolution is there kind of in the Clack philosophy. In other words, what does the tempo look like this spring season versus maybe your 2021 championship run season?
I mean, we kind of spoke to it. I look at it as there's kind of been three different phases for me, and each one of them I have pulled back. But when I say pull back, and I want to be careful with this, I'm not diminishing the importance of spring. It is important. I think most of the times, and in my past, we put it too high. I mean, it's kind of like getting up too much for a non-region game.
Dangerous.
Right? Yeah. It's still important, and we're still going out there to win, right? But let's keep things in perspective. And I think just the more I've gone through, the more intentional I've got about the key word, learn. And like you said, alignment, definitely with all the other things we've been talking about. But again, even the pace of our spring. I mean, you can look on social media and see guys day one, and they're getting after it, and they put together a nice little sizzle reel, and it's like, man, should we be doing that? And that's where you just got to trust. Well, we need to do the process that we feel is going to get us ready. And as long as June 2nd is matching what we're trying to get ready to when we get there, then we're on track. We're following our recipe. If we feel like now that we're in July 15th, and because we took so much time, and then maybe we got to ramp things up with that. There's always time to push and pull this thing, and we will. I mean, I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know what July is going to look like. I don't know what August is going to look like. I don't know what week 4 is going to look like. We'll constantly be kind of monitoring those checkpoints. Hey, do we need to push? Do we need to pull back? Do we need to, spend more time with this group and over, whatever that case may be.
So kind of give me your general assessment. How are things going right now?
So general assessment is back to kind of talking about this group that I've inherited. They've been so receptive. I keep using the word pliable. They've been so receptive to what we've done, and that's been great. And that's kind of, as I reflect back, and I constantly do this, just kind of comparing and contrasting the different times I've taken the programs. And I remember at one program, it was really, really the strain to get them to buy in, for various reasons. And that was where the energy was. Here, it's been, I don't have to talk you into it, like you're ready. Yeah. And then it shows, right? I mean, the moment we started taking over in the weight room and really ramping that urgency up and preaching, hey, we're doing this because this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to practice. Get to spring. I'll show you. I can't wait for you to see it. And so to assess that after the first practice, and they felt that energy and they felt that tempo, even in just helmets, I had the biggest smile on my face because they had the biggest smile on their face. And the coaches too.
Yep.
And the coaches too. And naturally, you're going to do a little bit of this. And then another big win is that third practice. It was a Monday, and it's spring, and we got pads on. Yes, there was excitement. There was a lot of energy. But again, we had some guys out. It was hard for us to cobble together a line. We had to, hey, I'm going to actually switch your position today, bud. I know you normally go D-line on orange. I'm going to have you go O-line on orange today, and then D-line, you're going to be D-line on white. Well, again, and maybe it was just a weekend, maybe it was whatever. It's day 3. We haven't done a whole lot. It was just overly sloppy, but I didn't think it was their effort. And so when I came in on the second yesterday after practice, I looked at it and I said, guys, I didn't like yesterday's practice. It didn't meet my standard. I said, but I own it. Because I thought your effort was good. If it was your effort, I would let you know. So I stayed up on, and we didn't tweak too much, But we kind of made sure we adjusted a couple things with that, some mirrored practice, but we adjusted a couple things. But I challenged them. I said, and one of my biggest mottos is champions. Winners don't lose 2 in a row. And I'm not talking about the school board. You may lose 2 ball games in a row. I'm saying when I go home at night, I win or lose on my personal scorecard. And for whatever reason, I didn't feel like I won yesterday with just my assessment. Not that it was bad, not that you did anything wrong, but that means I want to make sure today is 10 times better.
Yeah.
And I'm challenging you. And what was yesterday like?
10 times better.
It was a 10 out of 10. I mean, I even had parents calling and talking about it afterwards.
Awesome. You could see it, right? That challenge they took, not just the players, the coaching staff, right? We took that too. I know I did.
Yeah.
And took that like, okay, well, I ain't losing 2 in a row,
right.
so I'm gonna go out there and do everything I can to get these boys ready to win this practice.
Guys, and it can be so simple. It's like, hey man, let's just make sure. I call it our warm up. I call it pride lines, whatever. It says, hey man, during pride, let's make sure we're circulating. Just that little pat on the butt. Your energy is collecting into their energy is how we start. The thermostat again.
It just
how we start it.
Builds.
So hey, maybe I can do a little more of that. Hey, when we're transitioning, make sure you're ahead of the clock. Because we've had a situation where the coaches got a little behind the clock. They're learning too, and we were supposed to be transitioning the team. Well, the group period. It's 30 seconds now. I'm like, guys, I'm going berserk. Clock is not a suggestion.
I'm getting nervous and anxiety.
Well, the players broke, then the coaches are still dialoguing. The players didn't go to team. They went to sideline. And I'm now sitting here, guys, it's a minute and a half. And so the players had to get a sudden change, down and back to reset it. But it was coach's fault.
Yep.
And we talked about it. It wasn't nothing to blow a gasket about. I said, but guys, did y'all see the importance? You didn't transition quickly, and what did they do?
100%.
They meandered around. They didn't even know where to go. It was just straight to team. Like it should have just been, here we go. We should be running to team. It's team time. And they walked over like it was break because the coaches weren't moving and you're the one that knows the schedule.
Yeah.
We've talked about where this goes, but that's fun though. I love the building thing. I love this where we're all learning each other, and then seeing hey, we talked about this and now we saw it. Now it's like, and we can use that as a learning moment even with the kids, with the players.
Great. That's great. So tell me, we're kind of coming to the end of 2 weeks worth of spring here. So what's coming up? What do you have on the schedule? What does the next 60, 90 days look like?
So we're going into practice 5, so we're halfway through spring. We'll finish up with our spring inter squad on May 16th. Again, that's another philosophy of mine. I hate playing somebody else. I think it's so beside the point. I'm just trying to learn our team, not play somebody else. I don't want to lose some days preparing for an opponent. I want to put 22 people on the field at one time and not 11. I don't want to have to put anybody out there first. And when these position battles are going.
Yeah.
So we'll get through our spring game on the 16th, and then it's, we'll do a couple little things like building into our, we'll do, we'll vote for we'll have a draft for our summer competition team. So we'll do a couple little things with some of the senior leaders and things like that. But they pretty much will get 2 weeks off. We get a little time off. Memorial Day has always kind of been that's the perfect time. We can decompress.
It's your last weekend.
And then we get ready for summer, which honestly is one of my favorite times of the year. And people might look at you like you're crazy. It's like you're up there 4 days a week. From I'm getting up here. We start at 7:30 to 10:30. We'll go 4 days a week. Obviously, we'll have some 7-on-7s and some different things throughout June. We've got a bunch of camps going on. June's going to be jam full. A lot of investment back into the youth. So again, June I've really stacked it. I mean, when dead week comes, I'm probably going to sleep for about a week. But I wanted to do all that because again, that's that last phase of learn. So we're packing in a bunch of stuff there. When we hit the bye week, catch our breath, and then it's really just about us. Camps are done. I probably won't do another 7-on-7 or an OTA. I just want it to be about us as we start to really ramp to the season.
It's awesome.
It's funny you said you mentioned about the summer practice and how much you love those. How often do we hear every year? There's nothing like football practice on Thanksgiving Day. I think there's nothing like watching the sun come up while you're running your pride lines early in the morning, knowing that you're about to get 2.5, 3 hours of hard work in. You can come back and do it. That is a great feeling to me. That's that early morning, summer morning practice.
And then if you do it right. So again, summer can be tricky. You can burn them up. You can make it to where August 1st is coming, first day of practicing, guys. But the work's got to get done. So again, it's all about pushing and pulling that. Hey, do we need to find a day off? There'll be some team building days. There'll be some different things like that. But again, I find that when we show up with urgency, intensity, and enthusiasm, that 3 hours goes by like that. They've competed, they've had fun. They get out of here at 10:30, and they've done more than their buddies are going to do all day.
Yeah.
And they get to do it again the next day.
I want to talk about two kind of important dates for those that might be in the Parkview area. So you mentioned one. One is May 16th. Friday, May 16th is the spring game.
Spring game, yep.
That is, what time is that?
So we'll start at 5:30. We'll divide up in some form of inter squad. The flow and the structure of it. I'm still watching and seeing what it's going to look like. But it'll be free to anyone.
Open to the public.
We do ask, and we're going to throw this out there, we're going to ask for donations of things like water and Gatorade, detergent, maybe some snacks, because we're going to build a nutrition station for our guys. But other than that, come on, we just want people to come out and see and kind of get their first glimpse of the still very beginning thing. So I don't try to blow it up too much. You're not going to come out here and see the next Super Bowl by any means. But you're going to see a bunch of guys getting after it.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next big date on the calendar is June 26th. That is the Celebration of Excellence dinner. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Celebration of Excellence, part of, kind of going back into our Booster Club and community deal, one thing I realized is we're at a lot of events. And again, one of the biggest attractive things about this program is the star-studded alumni. And I'm telling you, talked about this so much, but when I got to know in college and then into my professional life, the people who came out of this Parkview program, the reverence and the pride that they had in this Paul was so different. Most of us, I would probably say, I think back on high school and I remember the people, and I have lots of people that I have lifelong relationships with I wouldn't trade for the world. But I don't really think about the school that much. It was just where I went to high school. There is a real pride here. So what Celebration of Excellence dinner is supposed to be, and I wanted to get this out of the gate fast, and we were going to do it May 15th, right before the spring game. But I forgot how chaotic May is. And everybody had conflict, so I was like, you know what, let's just move it. We'll move it to June 26th, which is also going to be fun. That's the last day of this phase, right? We're going right into Dead Week. So it's going to be a night where we're going to really try to get as many alumni back and as many community supporters who may not have direct relationships with the program, but they see the benefit of the program. They're sponsors of the program, or they realize, like, hey, when the football team is strong, the community's strong. And then obviously anybody directly associated with the program is welcome to come as well. But it's just meant to be a night to celebrate the excellence, the standard that has been set before us, and to kind of share our vision of what we're going to do forward and why we need your support to do that.
And how can people find more information on that? Where can they go?
So if you want to find more information, you can follow our social medias. So Parkview FB on Instagram, obviously my Instagram. We've got flyers on the academy, and you can also go to our website at parkviewfb.com, and you can find flyers and links for that.
So for our audience out here, just want to kind of wrap it up here. Just some key takeaways for coaches who, either at that youth feeder level or coaches that are entering their first season as a head coach of a high school program.
The key takeaways as I think about the transition is just identifying those big boulders, those main objectives. And you've got to be intentional about simplifying, because there's going to be 1,000 of them that are important, but what are the biggest ones? And making sure you attack those first, right? What's important now? Spending your energy there, and naturally relationships and communication and all that stuff, building those processes. And then as you get into spring, to me, again, and this is my philosophy, is keeping it in perspective. What are we really trying to achieve from these 10 practices? Are we going to make our decisions on what we're going to do in August? Are we going to win a game? Are we going to play a game of consequence here? No, right? It's to get us prepared to learn as much as we can to get ready for summer, because we're going to have 10 times more interactions with them and growth in the summer. And then, again, it's just a step in the process.
And not having the mentality that, well, we have a game next week.
Right.
You take that away, it opens up a lot of freedom to do a lot of different things.
So about us, yeah.
And Mash, I was going to ask you, since you're kind of at that assistant level, takeaways for assistants or young feeder coaches, because we've had a chance to sit down with a few of them, what they should be really focusing on right now.
Relationships. relationship. Just, I'm coming in here as much as I can and just talking to as many people as I can. I grab Coach Goodwell every day. He's probably sick of it, but just getting to know him, letting him get to know me, get to know the other, newer staff members, some of the older staff members, and then of course the players. I mean, I think the getting on the field and the, getting in the huddle and doing all the coaching stuff, and that's just kind of ongoing. You do that, but you got to get those relationships now. Like that is so important, because then you start to build trust, and you can't really do anything without trust.
Super excited to see what's happening. You guys are, like I said, giving you guys an A+ on all the efforts so far for your first 100 days. Giving you guys an A+ for what you're doing right now on spring practice. Excited to see what May 16th looks like, coming out and seeing the orange-white game. That's going to be a lot of fun. And again, I just appreciate you taking the time, because it's been fun. We had a chance to outline that blueprint for success, and it's been really fun to now kind of go back.
Following along.
And just seeing this program build.
We were preparing without knowing.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's great. So again, thank you so much for your time. And coaches, we'll see you out in the field. Thank you.